Good evening and welcome to Daily Politics on Trust TV, your go-to destination for in-depth conversations on politics, policy and governance. I'm Hamza Idris. Tonight we turn the spotlight on the protracted killings in north-central Nigeria, which grapples with farmer herder and ethno-religious conflicts that left hundreds of people dead, with hundreds of thousands displaced from their ancestral homes. The recent killings of over 200 people in attacks and reprisal attacks in Benue State indicates the cycle of killings have a boiling point, attracting condemnations from across the country and beyond. From Taraba to Benue, Nasarawa to Plateau and Niger, people have been losing their lives and livelihood to marauding killers, armed pastoralists, heartless ethnic militia, and dreaded bandits, deepening concerns about the nation's elected leaders to end the bloodshed. On Daily Politics tonight, we ask, what are the factors fueling the bloodletting and what can be done to end the carnage? And joining us to provide context and answers is a retired Major General Umar Mohammed. The ex-Army General has traversed the volatile geography while in active service. He joins us to share his experience and perspectives that could help address the problem. General, welcome to our studio.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure having me.
Thank you. And we'll take a short break. When we return, the conversation commences. Don't go away. And here are some major developments in the polity that have direct correlation with the tension in the North Central. President Bola Tinubu has rescheduled his official visit to Kaduna State and will now travel to Benue on Wednesday over the renewed violence in the state. The presidency said the presidential visit was part of renewed efforts to foster peace and address the persistent conflict afflicting communities in the state. Over 200 residents of Benue have been killed in the last few days since the last round of violence started the weekend, leading to outrage among citizens. And again, President Tinubu on Sunday directed security chiefs to implement his earlier directive to bring peace and security to Benue State. He also charged the governor of Benue, Hyacinth Alia, to convene reconciliation meetings and dialogue among the warring parties to end the incessant bloodshed. Special advisor to the president on information and strategy, Bayo Onanuga, revealed this in a statement he signed. So the title Benue Crisis. President Tinubu directs security chiefs to implement earlier directive, tasked Governor Alia on reconciliation. This follows the latest round of presidential attacks that led to the death of many people. Meanwhile, former Senate President David Mark has warned that residents of Benue State may soon be compelled to defend themselves if the rising wave of killings is not brought under control. Speaking through a statement by his media aide Paul Mume, Mark described the persistent attacks across Benue communities as strategic and senseless, saying the situation had gone beyond tolerable limits. He said the inability of the government to secure lives and property is pushing people to the edge, where self-defense might become the only option left. General, very few will talk about the insecurity in the North Central, going by your experience. Maybe I should start with, before you get to the defense headquarters to take a new role. You were in Plateau as the garrison commander, where heinous crimes were perpetrated. And it appears those problems have not been resolved. If problem in Plateau cannot be resolved, will problem in Benue be resolved? We want you to share your Plateau experience with us.
Okay, it's a pleasure having me. Let me first start by expressing my deep pains and anguish over the killings in Benue and all other parts of the country. I sympathize with the government and the people of Benue and Plateau states over these unfortunate incidents. Now, based on my experience, I would like to state that there is a nexus.
There is a nexus?
There is a nexus between insecurity and injustice. There is a nexus between insecurity and corruption. This country, as you see, we are actually flagged by endemic corruption and pervasive injustice. In this country, you can buy judgment with money, you can buy judgment with religion, you can buy judgment with tribe, you can buy judgment with your office, you can buy judgment with your political affiliation. Judgment, so that means justice becomes more elusive. And once there is no justice, insecurity will continue to thrive. This is why insecurity, you can see that the frequency, the scope, and the scale at which we're experiencing insecurity is so pervasive, is so endemic, that some urgent steps need to be taken. So to me, at the basis of all these things are the fact that so many people are actually being denied their rights. There are so many other factors that could be responsible for these cycles of killings. These are multifaceted and multidimensional. There is the political dimension, in which politicians instigate people to be engaged in crimes and criminality. Politicians. Then there is the economic dimension, in which poverty instigates people to indulge in other forms of criminality. Then there is a social dimension, in which injustice perpetrated by those in government pushes people to engage in criminal activity.
And I want to take you on this last one, that you say, actions of those in government.
Yes.
Lack of fairness.
Yes.
Serving as oil.
Yes.
For this round of criminality. I want you to expatiate on this.
Good. For instance, I can take you back. Look at Plateau State, for instance.
Where you served as
garrison commander.
Yes.
I can tell you that, go and look at history. From 1960 to the year 2001, there were no killings between Muslims and Christians. They were all living together peacefully.
Between 1960?
Yes.
That is when Nigeria got
independence.
Up to 2001. Which we can simply say 2 years into this democratic dispensation.
But since that time, you can never count the number of crises and conflicts that have taken place in the plateau. It is just a recurring decimal. Before then, people were living peacefully, people were living with one another. So the question is that there are so many policies, obnoxious policies, that tend to segregate people. Then there are so many, and some of those things are actually part of the push and pull in the crisis in the plot. For instance, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
In our own constitution, Article 14(2) sub B states that security and welfare should be the primary role of government. So based on that, that means government, the most important role of government is security. Now, going back to Plateau, you could see that I think since after the return to, before the return to civil rule, it was quite peaceful. After the return of civil rule, so many things continue to happen. For instance, the issue of settler and indigene.
That dichotomy.
That dichotomy existed even before them, but it was not actually implemented. But its implementation actually closed opportunities for some group of persons. And I can tell you, even now, if you look at Plateau, there are so many parts of Plateau that you could never have had any problems. Like Kanke.
Okay, Kanke, of all places.
Yes, and so many others, Kanem, and so many of those local governments. You don't hear of anything.
Why?
But the major problem is usually Bokos, Barikiladi, And these are people who have stayed for hundreds of years. And I used to tell people that, you see, even when you go back to our constitution did not in any way explain who is an indigene. So the constitution is silent, just says there are indigents. So based on that, and I can tell you that I used to tell people that everybody you see here migrated from somewhere, because migration is a human phenomenon. So the question is, who comes first? This is something that not everybody can be able to see, because there are some people who have been in Plateau. Some people say their families were there for 400 years. You cannot claim then that they are actually settlers. That makes them indigents. So this is why I am of the view that some of these policies, we should have a look at them. We should look at policies that deepen unity, policies that promote peaceful coexistence. We should frown on policies that increase animosity, deepen acrimony, and contribute to hatred. Because the question is that when I was in Plateau, I could see it, that these are some of the issues that the government should look at it, that we should avoid politics that exclude people. Now, not only that, there is actually, yes, there is the issue of land, there is the issue of fight over resources like water, but I can tell you that these are issues. And this is why I said that this is why I'm of the view that even currently now, they have recently formed a committee to look at the reasons for the crisis in the Plateau. When I looked at the list, it's quite good, it's well packaged. The
list of those
who are there as members. But I am of the view that, yes, if you are going to do such, the Fulani should be represented.
But they are not in that committee.
Yes, even if you are going to engage with them, let them be part of the committee. Let Christian Association of Nigeria be there. Let the...
But do you think it will really lead to something positive? Because, of course, I saw a clip, you know, a video, a footage of, you know, the leader, I think the leader who was charged to lead that committee, saying it's not really tenable for someone to just come and say that he is part and parcel of a certain community overnight. If someone who will lead a committee that will lead to, a consensus has this mindset, do you think at the end of the day there will be something tangible?
Well, I know the chairman of the committee is my senior in the army, and we in the military were actually taught and we are molded for us to be broad-minded. All of us, once you are trained by the military, the first thing you know is that you should be made to be, none of us should be a tribal bigot or a religious extremist. So being an officer, I feel, I know that the officer, the senior officer who is my superior is straightforward, but I have actually listened to it, you know, because since they are still in the process of finding the issues, so let's wait and see. But I can tell you that I have my own perception to what is happening, being the fact that I was there. Repeatedly, I've told people that the major crisis in Plateau has always been the issue of tit for tat. That means you touch me, I touch you. And even now you could see that, and you see like the herders, their major problem, their major asset in life is actually their cows. And you could see that even when I was there, we used to have a lot of issues of cows being rustled, being poisoned, you know. And some of them, because of the fact that they don't have any, they are not educated, they are not close to government, they don't have the press. So some of them resort to...
Their problems are not hard.
They are not problems.
Is there a relationship between what is happening in Plateau and Benue? Is there a nexus?
Well, you see, criminality, I can tell you that certainly there are nexus. Because you see, this is why the pull and push factors are all over. And I can tell you that there are, because, for example, in Benue, there is the issue of they are against open grazing. Now, even me, I'm against open grazing. But the question is that I used to tell people that if you say somebody should not do this, then you should give them an alternative. This is why I myself have actually been one of those who have actually called for the fact that we need to have ranches. The time for open grazing is over, because that is what is done for hundreds of years.
But when it is not there, and you said that Nigeria is a country where no boundary for citizens, meaning every citizen has the right to move. Now, in Benue, for instance, this story has not been there. Of course, 200 people have been killed, but about the same time, they said they've seen over 200 cattle floating on River Benue. They have been poisoned. We are unable to authenticate it, but this is the story out there. Is this actually part of the problem? Because it's like politicians are running away from the problem in Benue, and we want to unravel it. What is your understanding?
This is why I say, my understanding is the fact that we can only have peace when there is justice. Be it a Fulani man, or a Birom, or a thief, or whatever. Whoever commits an offense, he should pay for it. And then everybody should be actually treated fairly and equally. There should be equality in treatment. In other words, and this is why I'm of the view that for anybody to find a solution to some of these problems, you must actually have to bring everybody on board. Okay. Listen to everybody.
Okay, this is very important, and I think I will call a clip where the president, spoke along this line, so that we can dissect what he said. Yes.
Okay.
Why I sympathize with the Benue people, I've spoken to the governor. The leadership and people of Benue should accept our condolences and tried hard, very, very consciously, to maintain peace, harmony among themselves. I sympathize with those who have lost their life. I will adjust my program and go see Benue people on Wednesday.
Presence of the two here this afternoon, it's quite reassuring to our people. As the community elders and the traditional rulers were giving a positive nod for their very prompt response, I know we remain very hopeful that this kind of a devastating occurrence would not happen, not only within the local government, but around the state.
We're tired of innocent souls being killed, and we're here to ensure that we address such. From now, I'll be going to see my commanders, and we have to change our strategy. We're going to look inward and see how we can address it. But like we mentioned, we cannot do it alone without the community, without the state. We need everybody to be part of it. We understand that even before now, we used to have, even within us, people that compromise and give information, because going around, you see the way some of the burnings were made, they were targeted, and which means they had insiders. And so I've discussed with the communities, the traditional rulers, with the clergy, for us to work united. There have been some issues on trust, and that we're going to address.
This attack on the peaceful Yelewata community is one attack too many. It is not just an attack on the people of Benue State. It's an attack on the entire nation. And we are not going to accept it. The people of this community are not alone. We are with them. The entire Nigerian communities are with them.
Yes, to key issues there. The first, the president, you can see he said he has shelved his plan to visit Kaduna and instead he will go to Benue. But he also said they have to solve their problem. What is happening is actually retaliatory in nature, tit for tat. But it's like many people in Benue, they don't really accept that, because if you check the social media, they said it's like the president is trying to be biased. They are under attack and the president is saying tit for tat. I don't know how we can reconcile this. This is commander-in-chief, meaning that he must have spoken based on intelligence.
You see, the question is that we're all human beings. Now, even in science, they say every action leads to a reaction. If you keep this, it cannot move unless you push it. So the question is that I don't think anybody in his right senses will just go and kill somebody just like that because you hate him. It has not been the trend. Based on my experience when I was in the Plateau, I have known that most of the attacks that have taken place were as a result of reprisals.
Just as the president said.
Yes, that means you touch me, I touch you. And I think the better we end this cycle, the better for all of us. This is why I used to tell people that if we begin to blame one another, we will never see an end to this issue. We need to sit down and agree on issues. This cycle of violence has to be ended.
But how can it be ended when people are living in denial, General? Because as I said, of course, in the introductory part, you can see we also quoted David Mark, a retired general of the army, saying it appears as if he passed a vote of no confidence in a way. I don't know, I may be wrong, but from what he said, that people will be forced to defend themselves.
You see, this is why I say he is a very senior officer. I'm not faulting him. And,
for taking that position. Just the way T.Y. and Juma also took similar position.
But to me, I'm always of the belief that we should allow the security agencies to do their job. All what they need is more information. They need to, I know the Chief of Defense Staff, and I know he's working in synergy with the police and other security agencies. I'm sure if they can get their acts together, they can be able to stem the tide. Stop this. However, as General C.G. Musa has equally said, you see, some of these solutions are not kinetic. The kinetic is just an aspect, it's just an enabler. The most important thing is people to agree to stay together. And this is why I said that I used to tell people that by destiny, we're actually created in the same country with different tribes, different religions. So we should be tolerant of one another.
But who will make, you made a very good foundation to this our conversation when you cited Plateau, like from 1960 up to 2001, peace. People living in harmony. Now we have the politicians, they have the powers. Even the president is the commander-in-chief. I personally think that calling names will solve the problem. Why am I saying this? Just a few days ago, the same governor of Benue said he knows the people who are behind the crisis in his state. They are in Abuja and in the National Assembly. Now, in another soup, you hear some people saying, okay, it is herders who are actually killing the natives in Benue. And then when you flip another page, they will tell you that they are actually militias within Benue, that, okay, this community will attack this one will attack. We are all living in denial. As an experienced hostile environment military officer, where should we start to end this round of violence in Benue?
I will take you back to when I was in the National Institute.
National Institute, okay.
Of Policy and Strategic Studies.
Okay.
We did a study on farmer-herders clashes at the National Institute. And there was a professor who was with us, who happens to be from Plateau. For his own project, he selected to do a project on the crisis in Plateau. He had a view from the beginning,
Yes.
up initio, that it was actually the Fulanis that were killing his own people.
He had that impression.
So when he went for a detailed study and he finished, he actually then, he came and told us that he discovered that there was one Ghana who was later killed. He was the one, he was actually an architect of killing so many people in the state.
In Benue.
In Benue. His name is Ghana. He has actually been killed so
Yes.
many years ago by the military. You know, so he had a militia, and up to now, that his militia, they are still there. And they are still operating. You know, so this is why I said that the issues are multidimensional.
And you know that same Ghana at the time was the hitman of a certain governor in...
So you see, this is why the issues are multidimensional.
And that study was validated, was accepted at least?
Yes. Well, he did, he's a professor, he did his own research. Yes, he actually made a presentation. And that was...
Relevant questions were asked,
yes,
and he defended.
And at that time, he was most of, he did not say all, but most of the killings at that time were actually perpetrated by Ghana and his men. But before then, everybody was saying it was Fulanis. I agree that so many Fulanis are in this, are part of this criminality. But the question is that so many of them, as I told you, could be as a result of reprisals. But the question they need to be educated. They need to be arrested and be dealt with. Nobody should be spared. Whoever has done what is wrong should be dealt with. This is why I said that, you see, when one of the US presidents came to Africa, he said the problems with Africa is we have weak institutions and strong individuals. And that is what
instead of the other way.
Instead of the other way.
In the US, you have strong institutions. So even if the president or whoever is a lucky, the system will checkmate you.
Yes, but here, everybody is an institution. The institution is so bastardized.
But why are such individuals not held to account? I am saying this, and let me give an instance. As I said earlier, this governor of Benue State, recently he said those behind this are politicians in Abuja and National Assembly. And nobody cares to ask him question or to compel him
to name them.
Now, in another instance, he said they are herdsmen, not even from Benue or neighboring states, that they came without cattle. They just came to wreak havoc. And nobody is asking, where are they? Bring them. Because if a chief executive can say this, you know, how do we reconcile it?
This is why I say that I'm actually saddened that we have reached this stage in which you can see that more than 100 innocent lives were lost.
Yes.
It's a very painful incident. I'm pained by what has happened, and I'm really disturbed at how things are deteriorating by the day. Now the question is that this is why I say that, to me, the government should actually involve everybody. There should be community, it should be community-led, because it's not only kinetic that the military and the police cannot solve all the problems. They can be part of the solution, but the biggest part of it is the issue of communities coming together. And this is where the issue of inclusion comes in. You see, I can tell you that when I was in the Plateau, Jos itself is shared into zones. In other words, there is a Christian zone, there is a Muslim zone. And if crisis starts and you are in the opposite zone, you are dead.
No way you will escape.
You will escape. And because even when I was there, I said that is not the way I knew Jos when we were there as young officers. They were mixed. People were living together. But now, since 2001, they can't live together. There are red lines all over. And this is why there is suspicion, there is hostility, there is hatred. And I think this is why I'm of the belief that there is need for You see, in Plateau, they have so many NGOs, non-governmental organizations, that have been trained in how they can bring peace, how they can be able to bring communities to diffuse tension, increase cooperation and harmony. But I don't know. The question is that, is it that there is no political will? Is it that everybody is happy with what is happening? Because the question is that if we are going to, you blame others blame you, and then we'll continue to do that, we'll never find a solution to it.
Okay, and beyond political will, sincerity of purpose, yes, it appears to be questionable. One of the service chiefs who spoke said they will change strategy. I remember during President Buhari, he gave a marching order to the then IGP to relocate to the same Benue when there was serious tension there. And the same Buhari, after something, he said he only got to discover that the IGP did not heed his directive. Now, here we are. Almost all of them have relocated to Benue. And your guess might be like mine. The tendency is tomorrow you may not see any of them there, or a day after. So where do we place sincerity of purpose in addressing some of these problems?
You see, you know, the question is that as of now, things have changed. If you are the chief of army staff, you can sit in your office and oversee what is happening in Maiduguri. You don't need to be physically there. Even though being there can ginger and support your troops to fight better, but you don't need to be there. The chief of defense staff does not need to be in Benue.
You can operate remotely.
Yes, because the question is that he only gives directives.
And I think the chief of army staff, was he there last week?
Yeah,
it's like their presence. I'm sorry to ask this because you're also a general. There is this camaraderie among you people. You rarely criticize one another. But they have been going to Benue, and the more they go, the more the problem becomes severe.
This is why I'm just telling you that the problems with Nigerians is that we start thinking that everything should have a kinetic solution. No. This one, it should be from the community. The military and the police can only assist and support. Because the question is that when people are living together, because for instance, do you know the size of Benue? Benue is about 34,000 square kilometers. It's big. Plateau is about 30,000 square kilometers. It's also big.
And when you put the two together,
so you are thinking of about 70,000 square kilometers.
Nasarawa is sandwiched.
Yes. So the question is, how many men are you going to put for you to police everywhere? It's not possible. And the question is that the only alternative is to have technology, but do we have enough drones, enough surveillance equipment to see whoever is there? We don't have. So even if the chief of army staff is there, just behind him, they can, you see, we're not spirits.
But some people believe that even if every other person is compelled or assuaged to become a security personnel, if there is no sincerity of purpose, if there is no agreement that we will live together, people will continue to fight.
Yeah, this is why I'm just telling you that what we need is a community buy-in. That I want to stay with you and you want to stay with me, and that I want to stay with you peacefully.
But isn't it the same politicians who are actually utilizing the gullibility of these communities with the instrument of poverty, deprivation, and all that to, force them to rise against each other?
I agree with you that there is the political dimension to it. There is also the social dimension. There is the economic dimension. The economic dimension is actually the fact that once you are poor, you actually lose the sense to take decision. Because whatever they tell you, provided there is money, you are actually made to follow it. But what is important is the fact that I wish to state that to me, the service chiefs and the police and other security agencies are doing their best. They can do much better.
Okay, they are doing their best, General, but are they really well equipped? I don't know. It's been long when you left the military, but
you see, the question is that you are very correct. Even the American military is not equipped to what they would want.
To the optimum.
To the optimum. So the question is that Nigerian army, where I served, is actually one of the biggest, most organized, most equipped army in Africa.
Nigerian army?
Yes, it
most
is.
Equipped? One of them?
One of, yes, certainly.
Will you compare it with South Africa's army or Egypt in terms of manpower and even having the MRAP, this sophisticated?
You see, the question is that South Africa is more advanced in technology, so they produce some of their equipment. So they are ahead of us, but that does not mean that we will not match them. Egypt also has a larger army than we have. Their own army was up to about 500,000 or more, which is far, far larger than the Nigerian army. And not only that, Egypt, because of they have a pact with the United States, in which United States give Egypt a lot of money every year so that they don't fight Israel. So based on that, they use that money to equip their armed forces. So they are well equipped. They also produce some of the things they have.
Why are we lagging behind after calling ourselves giant of Africa? Because when you look at the ratio now, military personnel with the population, we are talking about 230 million people, and the military, is it up to 50,000?
No, it's not 50,000, but I will not tell you the number, but we are far more than 50,000. But I can tell you that, you see, all these things are based on the scale of preference of the country. I don't determine what should be the size of the force of the army. It is actually the president and the National Assembly that should do that. But I can tell you that over the years, I have been in some committees in which we made recommendations on the need to expand the army. You know, the need to buy more equipment. The government had been doing so much. Even during Buhari, he bought a lot of equipment. Even this government, a lot of equipments were being bought. But there's a gap. We can do better.
And then,
as a country,
now comes the issue of the police. Can we say they have abdicated their responsibility of civil authority? Because if the police are well equipped, doing the right thing, the Benue crisis, we shouldn't see the military there. The crisis in Plateau, we shouldn't see the military there. Well, in Niger, in Sokoto, you know, in Zamfara. These are things that should be handled by the police.
I agree with you that what happens is that the first line in security should be the police. Then after is when the police is overwhelmed that the military should come in. But however, you can see that what happens is that what we are fighting is actually a very organized, equipped, hardened set of criminals that their own knowledge, know-how, and tactics is far more sophisticated than what the police can handle. And I'm sure it was based on that the army was drafted. And you can see even the army, we're doing our best, but there is a gap. We need to upscale our game.
But beyond the kinetic that you spoke,
yes.
The non-kinetic, it has to do with maybe the resources, the sharing of the resources, because if we're talking about harder, farmer, meaning it has to do with water, it has to do with powder and all that. Do you think the governors are really serious in addressing some of these challenges to mitigate the conflict among these groups?
This is why I say I agree with you that in this country, so many in the Plateau and even now, so many committees were set up. They came up with the white paper, and the governments were made to implement. Many of those things were not implemented, and I think if they are implemented, it will have actually gone far in trying to address some of these challenges which continue to reoccur, because the frequency, the scale, and the severity at which we are experiencing security lapses or breaches is so painful and is so annoying. So I'm of the view that, you see, each governor has his own scale of preference. Some of them are thinking of building bridges, doing roads. and they actually not thinking of security.
Or making laws that will actually aggravate problem, because autumn in my mind in Benue, because I'm really interested in Benue. You know, when he set up those laws banning open grazing, no alternative. There is no grazing reserve, no nothing. And we are still reeling in that pain, and nobody is even making reference to what autumn did.
No, this is why you're very correct that as a policy, as somebody who has gone through policy in policy initiation, how you come up with policy and how you implement it, I agree with you that whatever you do should be subjected to monitoring and evaluation. In other words, even if you churn out a policy, you should have an office that is actually observing, taking data of what is happening, and then evaluate it and see, is it working or is not.
If it's not working, you change.
If it's not, you change. So I think some of us don't do that.
And that is why we are having problems.
That is why we're having problems.
Okay, General, because we have like 7 minutes to go, I want to take you back to Plateau, because there is this case that has refused to go. It has refused to be decided. The killing of chief of administration, right?
Yes.
The Army headquarters, General Alkali. You were the garrison commander there. Even though we have very limited time, where is the case now? And what is your take on that case?
Okay, you know, the case has actually continued to linger. And the question is that I will just come with a question to you.
Okay.
Imagine it is Alkali that has killed those who killed him. And they have the evidences against him the way we have evidences against them. Where will the case be by now?
Now, who is hiding the case file? I mean, who is behind?
So this is why it's only the Plateau judiciary that can answer that. This is why I asked this question. I can tell you that Alkali was killed. He doesn't even know them. It's all part of what is happening. It's all part of the tit and tat.
And I think only in Nigeria you will kill a general and go away with it.
Yes, because not only that, I can tell you that after he was killed, we were able to recover 2 other vehicles, and we had more than 20 other vehicles, and all of them were killed.
You mean in that pond?
In that pond.
In Duradu?
Yes,
pond.
in that pond. More than 20 vehicles, some motorcycles, some keke napep, and all of them could have been killed.
Why you didn't evacuate them?
Okay, you see the pond collapsed. So it was beyond our own level. So we recommended to the federal government to direct the state government to evacuate it, and then after that fill it. We made that recommendation, and we also, because let me share with you one painful story. While we were doing the search and rescue, there was a woman who came from far away from Zamfara. She now told us that her husband was a lecturer in a tertiary institution. He was doing his PhD in Abuja. He used to travel on that road to Abuja. So he left Abuja, he left Taraba, came for his lectures, and he was going back, and he spoke with her while he was in Jos. He followed up. And after Jos, he was on his way to Taraba. But they have not seen him as of the time she came for more than 4 years. She said she was there, he has 3 children, his mother was alive. That some people are saying maybe he has run away, he has PhD, so how could he run away? So she wanted us to be able to get his vehicle so that they can have a closure
of his case.
Of his case, because she said even if today, whenever somebody knocks the house, children will start shouting, "Daddy, Daddy," thinking that they are.
And nothing about him up to now. Where are those people that you arrested?
All of them were released. In fact, they were, even when they called me, all of them came from their houses. They were looking so robust, as if they have done nothing. That is Nigeria for you. This is why I say, in as long as...
Who released them? Who released them?
The state, the judiciary in Plateau.
What will be your call? Because the families of General Alkali are still in pain. They are looking for justice. I know that you've been invited like once or twice after a certain interview we had with you when the case appeared to have disappeared.
This is why I say the onus lies on Plateau State government. And this is why Plateau State government, my advice is that you want peace, then try and ensure that you ensure there is justice. You cannot have peace where there is no justice. Give alkali justice and your people will get justice. Because for me, I'm pained. So many people, this is what alkali is a victim. The way your people are also victims. Let's stop this victim. Let's try to see that whoever commits an offense, let's make sure that he's punished. It's only when you do that you have peace. It's not, so that means even if it's a header that has killed somebody, if you arrest him, please deal with him based on the law. And if it is a local that has done something, deal with him based on the law. Once you do that, you see that people will sit up. Otherwise, we'll continue to move from
now
left
this attitude of state governments covering criminals. We have seen some videos, even from Katsina, from Zamfara, you know, military operatives alongside bandits, you know, talking to communities, and at the end of the day, you see the same heinous act being perpetrated. Do you think this, meeting between these criminals who go back to their old stock after meeting with officials and all that, do you think is the way to go? Or we have to have a brand new approach to end this problem across the North Central?
To me, as a person, I don't actually support the issue of negotiating with bandits. And if you are going to negotiate with them, you have to disarm them. Because the question is that you negotiate with them and they go with their arms. So what are they doing with arms? Provided there is going to be negotiations, negotiations should only hold when they decide to submit their weapons. Because the question is that once you have weapons and you are not entitled to hold it, you are not entitled to carry it. So already you have committed an offense against the state. So it shouldn't be allowed. It shouldn't be tolerated.
So while you are not averse to a negotiation, the federal government or the state government should do that from the position of strength.
Good.
After disarming the criminals.
Yes.
But you think it can solve the problem? Because we are looking for a final and everlasting solution to the problems, especially in the North Central.
This is why, provided you have proliferation of small arms and light weapons, peace will continue to elude us. So this is why I'm of the view that for government should not negotiate with bandits unless if they are subdued and they have agreed to hand over their weapons.
All right, thank you very much, Major General Umar Mohammed, retired, for your informed perspective on the crisis in the North Central and Nigeria. We hope to have you some other time.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Yes, and viewers, that's a wrap on today's package. We hope you found the conversation engaging and informative. And be sure to join Daily Politics airing every day and our special package on Friday and Sunday, during which we open the telephone line for you to comment on national issues. From here, I'm Hamza Idris. Bye-bye and see you tomorrow.